After being beheaded by Tanjiro, Akaza is still stunned at what just happened. In the last few hundred years, he had never seen someone without fighting spirit. Even a baby crying shows it is fighting to live. Tanjiro's fighting spirit had disappeared completely, like he was fighting a plant, an anomaly that should not exist and caused his compass to not respond. Still, he pushes past the challenge of not sensing Tanjiro, knowing that in battle, it is vital to immediately understand and handle the unexpected. Yet, he understood that Tanjiro had grasped something and surpassed his speed, attacking head-on to defeat hundreds of years of martial arts experience. His eyes bore no malice or fighting spirit, and Akaza realized he had perceived the domain of supremacy, a selfless state whose vague existence was something he knew but could never have attained. Akaza puts his detached head back onto his body and attempts to heal, adamant to keep fighting and getting stronger. Tanjiro realizes what he is trying to do, and Giyu responds by hurling his broken sword at the demon's head, knocking it away from his body. Despite his head now separated, Akaza still attempts to will himself and continue getting stronger, but the head begins to disintegrate to ash, eventually leaving Giyu's sword where it lands. Tanjiro grows relieved as he sees he has won, but his body begins to tremble from reaching his limit. However, the two notice Akaza's body has not faded yet. As they look on in anxious anticipation, his body suddenly performs technique development, compass needle, and takes a fighting stance, the neck staunching its wound to stop the bleeding. The headless body attacks Tanjiro and attempts to chop off his neck, only barely missing when he dodges the blow. As it attempts to grow a new head, it kicks the weakened Tanjiro in the side and sends him crashing into a wall. In pain and shock, Tanjiro questions how he could have failed to kill Akaza despite beheading him. He initially believes he has a special condition, as with Gyutaro and Daki, but remembering how he saw the severed head burn to ash, instead, Akaza is attempting to evolve even further, and like Muzan, he is trying to extend his weakness beyond his head. As he attempts to get up, Tanjiro finally loses consciousness after having reached his body's limit. Watching from behind them and seeing him vulnerable, Giyu picks up his broken sword and uses water breathing, fourth form, striking Tide, but the headless body heals the slashes almost instantly. Giyu is shocked to see the speed at which Akaza heals even without his head. Without his mark, Giyu is quickly overwhelmed by Akaza's attacks and is brought down. The demon turns to Tanjiro with the intent to kill, but the Hashira yells at the demon that he is still alive, and if he wants to get to Tanjiro, he must defeat him first. A voice rings in Akaza, telling him that indomitable wills won't ever break in any hardship, and that while they are not samurai who carry a sword, they carry swords in their heart and use their fists. Akaza disregards the voice as a nuisance and attempts to confront Giyu, but he is held back by a young woman who tearfully tells him, "Hakuji, that's enough." As Giyu readies to fight Akaza once more, he realizes the direness of his situation. His left ear hearing is gone, his right hand is numb, and he can't tell how much strength he has left. As with how sprinting can only be done for so long till the point of exhaustion, reaching past one's physical limits results in precision being lost and heavy strain on the muscles, hands, and feet. Demons, on the other hand, don't feel pain, nor do they tired. It is a miracle anyone can battle an upper rank with just a breathing style. Despite the odds, Giyu resolves to save Tanjiro and prevent the death of another person who saved him. The woman urges Akaza to stop and holds onto his hand, who demands she let go and asks who she is. She begs him to leave, but the demon wishes to kill Giyu and Tanjiro. When asked why he wants to kill them, he answers that he must become stronger. And when the woman asks why he must, Akaza responds, "Because if I'm not strong, I can't bring it back. Medicine for my father." As his life flashes before his eyes, he remembers he wanted to get stronger so that he could steal money, fight back against his victims when they retaliate, and endure beatings at the magistrate's office when he is caught. Tied up and bloody from his lashings, Akaza, then known as Hakuji, is presented before the magistrate, who warns him after getting tattooed for his crimes. The next punishment is losing a hand. Hakuji laughs and dismisses the threat, claiming that without hands, he can still use his feet, vowing to never get caught again. The magistrate reminds him even at the age of 11, he is already a repeat offender and endures beatings severe enough to make a grown man faint, calling him a demon child. After leaving the office, Hakuji laughs off being insulted as a demon child child and claims he was born with teeth. Suddenly, a man informs him that his father had hung himself upon learning he was caught. At the cemetery, holding a letter from him in his hand, he finds his father's headstone. The letter he wrote to him reads, "Dear Hakuji, live an honest life. You can still change. I didn't want to live if it meant you had to steal from people. I am sorry for troubling you." Clutching his headstone, Hakuji mourns his father, angrily asking if the poor were even allowed to live, and cursing the world for his death. Hurt and enraged, Hakuji walked into a town and started a brawl, brutally beating several men as they tried to fight back against him, all while denouncing them for being alive as his father died. He yells out that he wasn't a bother who needed to apologize for anything, and for his sake, he could take any punishment they give him no matter the severity. His father's condition had begun to worsen, but he was sure he could save him, yet he chose to hang himself and die, a choice he was prepared to make himself and do for him. As his victims lay unconscious, and Hakuji takes time to breathe, a martial artist offers him a slow clap and commends his skill. He notes he had been summoned with the news that a child was about to be killed, only to instead see that said child had knocked 7 grown men unconscious. The man tells Hakuji he has promise, and is impressed by his skill to fight bare-handed. Akaza wonders who he is as he realizes he is seeing his memories. When the man asks if he could come to his dojo since he has no students, Hakuji angrily dismisses his offer and threatens to kill him. He notes that he has tattoos branding him as a criminal from Edo, meaning he was banished and came here, but Hakuji pays no heed and claims it has nothing to do with him. The man tells him it is time he is reborn and takes a fighting stance. Hakuji lunges at him with all his rage, but the man throws numerous rapid punches at the boy, knocking him unconscious. When he regains consciousness, the man is amazed at his toughness despite the severe beating he received, only waking up after an hour. He introduces himself as Keizo, a martial teacher at a dojo that teaches the Soryu style, though he earns a living through odd jobs due to having no students. As Hakuji follows behind him, Keizo explains his new job is to nurse his sick daughter whilst he is away. His wife grew tired of having to care for her and drowned herself, and burdened by her death, he became weak-willed. Hakuji questions if Keizo would want a criminal to care for his daughter, but Keizo notes that since he had defeated him, it is okay with him now. It is then that Akaza realizes the reason he dislikes Tanjiro is because he reminds him of Keizo, a figment of his worthless life story. Keizo introduces him to his daughter Koyuki, and her condition reminds Hakuji of his father's own illness. He asks if she is feeling better than before and introduces her to the boy behind him, who refuses to give his name. Keizo asks that she get it before he comes back and leaves to go to work. Alone with Hakuji, Koyuki asks if he is okay, seeing his injuries. Akaza remarks that his worthless life was nothing but lies. Hakuji questions why the ill are always apologizing for factors beyond their control. Despite wanting independence, they cannot move, and despite their suffering, they insist they are to blame. While helping Koyuki, she apologizes to him because he is unable to train or have fun with her. Her condition has worsened, leading to him spending all night changing her bedding and towels, giving her water, and helping her relieve herself. Having helped his father with his illness and with superior endurance to most, Hakuji was not bothered. He tells Koyuki he spends his time training anyway and does not mind not being out. She insists that he must leave her sometimes, having heard that there would be fireworks tonight and insisting he go. He responds he can simply carry her and they can go see them together. She becomes confused, and he explains that even if she can't go today, they will be on each year and she can go see them then. Upon hearing this, Koyuki begins to cry, dismayed. Hakuji notes it is the one thing he didn't like about nursing her, believing that being sick and bedridden was making her sad, something he didn't enjoy. While taking a drink with Keizo, the master notes that the kanji for Haku in Hakuji is the same as Koma in Komainu, believing that both of them must protect something like a Komainu protecting its shrine, a fact that makes him laugh. Hakuji recounts how Keizo came to own the dojo. Though he wasn't a samurai, he owned the land because he had saved the owner from bandits. Impressed with his fighting and without an heir, the man gave Keizo his land and dojo. However, others who wanted the land were displeased when Keizo took ownership, and a nearby Kenjutsu dojo began to harass Keizo's dojo, leading him to have difficulty finding students. Despite this, lessons with him and helping Koyuki healed Hakuji's heart. Years later, Hakuji is now 18 and Koyuki is 16. No longer sick, she was bright, cheery, and eager to help in the dojo, happy to live normally. One day, Keizo calls Hakuji over to speak with him. In the main room, he asks if Hakuji would like to be his successor to the dojo, adding that Koyuki likes him, rendering both teens speechless. Having been branded a criminal, he could have never imagined himself with a future, let alone one where someone likes him. He realizes he is now able to live the righteous life his father had asked him, giving him the hope that he could start anew. Hakuji bowed in gratitude to Keizo, recalling at that moment he would give his life to Koyuki and Keizo, and as such, he could have never imagined them poisoned to death. Hakuji went to his father's grave to tell him he would be getting married, but while returning, he saw people at the front of the dojo giving him a terrible premonition. He is told that the well they drank from was poisoned because the assailant couldn't beat him or Keizo in a battle. Inside the dojo, Hakuji saw the bodies of Koyuki and Keizo, their clothes bloody and faces covered. He lamented that once more a crisis had happened and he wasn't there to save the people he loved, even when he promised. Previously, while watching a display of fireworks, Koyuki asked him if he had remembered when they both talked about seeing them, to which he vaguely recalls. She tells him that even such a minor conversation made her happy, because even when she couldn't see them then, he had told her she could see them next year. Koyuki couldn't imagine living another year. Her mother felt the same way, not wanting to see her die, which she believes is the reason she killed herself. She knew that even her father had given up on her because she was so weak. Despite it, she remarks when he told her about the coming years, it was as if Hakuji could see her future and stated it as a matter of fact. She asks if he would be her husband, holding his hand. Hakuji holds hers and says yes, promising to become stronger than anyone else and protect her for life. Hakuji bitterly remarks that in the end, he never lived up to his promise. Records at the magistrate's office recount details of a gruesome massacre. Enraged at losing the people he loved once again, Hakuji attacked the neighboring dojo and killed 67 of its members with his bare hands. The dojo was strewn with crushed organs and bodies mangled beyond recognition, a hellish scene with viscera, brains, and limbs scattered along the walls and ceiling. The maid who witnessed the massacre lost her mind, and 30 years later, the records were destroyed because it was so unbelievable, it was thought to be fabricated. Dripping with blood and dazed in exhaustion, Hakuji walked mindlessly until he came to a footbridge. The man on it remarks about hearing of the dojo's massacre as he didn't recall sending a demon to the town, disappointed to know it was a human who committed the murders. Hakuji threatens to kill the stranger when he suddenly lunges and impales his head with his hand. Planning to create a group of 12 powerful demons, he asks Hakuji if he could withstand the blood he will receive. Broken by his loss, he replies that he did not care anymore. As a demon, now going by the name AKAZA, Hakuji had lost his memories, but was still drawn to seeking greater strength, even when he had nothing he wanted to protect. He didn't want to live in a world without his family, and for over the next century, he would go on to commit countless acts of pointless violence, denouncing his entire life as a horribly sad, laughable, and ridiculous story. As AKAZA laments he cannot go to heaven like his father, Keizo and Koyuki, he becomes furious that Tanjiro and Giyu have reminded him of his painful past. He curses humans as weak, soft, brittle. They die right away. They're brittle and disappear into nothing. Tanjiro awakens from his ordeal, shocked at how he fainted mid-battle. As AKAZA begins to regenerate his head, he begins to deploy his annihilation type. As Tanjiro yells at him to stop, the demon becomes shocked that Tanjiro has managed to survive his kick. Declaring he will behead AKAZA again, Tanjiro's sword ignites with the fires of the Hinokami Kagura. However, his sword slips out of his grasp, forcing Tanjiro to punch AKAZA's face instead. The punch reminds him of when he first met Keizo, making him remember why he hates weak people. Weak people never fight face to face. They poison wells. They're impatient. He killed these weak people with his fists. He suddenly realizes throughout his life as a demon, he turned his master's fighting style into a bloody weapon and never respected his father's last words. Finally realizing who he must truly kill. As Tanjiro panics about his lost sword and seeing AKAZA about to use the same technique that killed Rengoku, he suddenly notices Giyu in the attack's range. Though Giyu tells to not worry about him, Tanjiro grabs him and throws both themselves out of the technique's path. Suddenly, he sees Akaza, smiling slightly, followed by an immense explosion. The attack leaves the surroundings devastated, as well as Akaza's body, now a broken, bloody mess. Wondering why Akaza would attack himself, Tanjiro smells a scent of gratitude from the corpse, as well as asking himself why he had smiled before hitting himself. The body begins to regenerate, but Akaza stops the process, telling himself the fight is over. He has lost fair and square. He comments Tanjiro had magnificent technique, anticipating and slashing before he could react. The broken body begins to walk away, while Akaza's spirit comments he would go to hell as a man. When he stops, to Tanjiro's confusion, his spirit meets with his father's. Asking if he was alright, his father comments yes, calling him Hakuji and thanking him. As he bows and crouches down, apologizing for being unable to fix himself, his head is held by Keizo's spirit. Keizo tells him that they would never abandon him no matter what, despite Akaza not being able to go to heaven with them. As he calls out for his master, Muzan appears, grabs his head and scolds him, reminding him to get stronger and continue fighting. With that, his body regenerates even quicker. Akaza voices his will to keep his promise and get stronger, declaring once again he will kill everyone. Suddenly, Koyuki touches his face, thanking Hakuji and saying that he has done enough. Though Muzan appears again, calling him Akaza once more, he overcomes Muzan's control and grabs Koyuki's spirit on the verge of tears. Once again, the human Hakuji. He tearfully apologizes for being unable to protect her, for not being there when she needed him, for not being able to keep his promise. Crying for forgiveness, Koyuki is glad that Hakuji had remembered them all despite his long demon life and returning as a human again. With the words, "Welcome back, my husband," Akaza stops his regeneration. Tanjiro watches as his body finally fades into ash as Hakuji finally rests in peace. このままじゃ今までの俺と同じだ。人生変えに来てんだよ。